Councillors, it's just gone 4 o'clock, so let's get underway. I'd like to welcome all to this extraordinary general meeting of the Armidale Regional Council of 10 May 2022. So could I call upon Councillor O'Brien to do the civic affirmation?
We, the councillors of the Armidale region, declare that we will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interest of our community and faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in us to the best of our skill and judgment.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Could I call upon Councillor Robinson for the acknowledgement of country?
We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Armidale regional community pays tribute to their love of land, love of people and love of culture.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Can I call upon the General Manager to make a statement regarding live streaming of council meetings?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recordings of the non-confidential parts of the meeting will be made available on the internet. No other persons are permitted to record the meeting unless specifically authorised by council to do so. And can we just ask that mobile phones be set to silent or switched off, please? Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillors, I have not received any apologies or requests for leave of absence, and I note that we are all in the chamber today. Councillors, having reviewed the agenda, do any of you need to declare a conflict of interest? Note that as that's not being required. Councillors, we now need to move into the main item of business, item 7.1. So this is really the culmination of what we have been working on as a group of councillors for the last 6+ weeks. There is a recommendation in there, and it's important that we note what everything is. So, and that recommendation is firstly that the councillors endorse the draft documents for public exhibition. So there are 6 documents to go up there. There is the community plan, there's the delivery program, there's a resourcing strategy, there's the draft operational plan and budget, draft revenue policy, draft fees and charges. We're also being asked to note that the 2022-23 budget proposes an operating deficit of $3.2 million, from which we will need to draw down on internal reserves to the tune of $2.4 million. It also includes the 2.5% additional special rate variation endorsed by Council on the 28th of April this year. We're also being asked to note the General Fund long-term financial plan contained in the draft resourcing strategy proposes a 50% special rate variation to be phased in over a 3-year period, commencing in 2023-24 financial year. And we're also being asked to note the IP&R document exhibition period will run from Wednesday the 11th of May to Wednesday the 8th of June. And finally, following the exhibition period, a report will be presented to us as councillors outlining the community submissions received, along with the final integrated planning and reporting documents. Councillors, do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Gadders, and a seconder, Councillor Redwood. Thank you. Councillor Gadders, would you care to speak to this?
Just briefly, Mr Mayor, obviously moving the motion as recommended there. I guess the main purpose of the motion today is to vote, as we see, to put these documents on public display. I'm sure that we'll have some conversation over the next few minutes, but I just wanted to put in there additionally that at the heart of these planning documents, I believe with the systematic revenue problem that ARC currently has, and the extensive work that Council has put in to these planning documents and what it's taken to build this, I think the actual approach is sound, and I believe it's based on very sound financial management going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gadders. Councillor Redwood, would you care to speak at all? No. Councillors, would anyone else like to? Councillor Packham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to follow basically the recommendation. I would like to have an amendment on the first paragraph.
Can you speak?
sorry, if I could have an amendment on the first line, please, and to endorse placement of the documents to the public rather than endorse placement of the, endorse placing the following draft documents for public exhibition. It's my proposed amendment, please.
Okay, thank you. Second that. Well, that's, if unless you're happy to just have it in there and can remain part of the substantive motion. Well, let's do that. That can, and Councillor Redwood, if you're happy to. Thank you. Would any councillors care to speak on the motion? Councillor Robinson.
I'd just like to say that this is really to put the documents on public exhibition, and we're putting them on public exhibition so that we can get feedback from the community, and we'll welcome and listen to all that feedback. And I do hope at the same time we can look at maybe making this financial information a bit easier for the public to understand. I've spent quite a long time studying it, and I think finally I'm getting to grips with it. But I would really like to have a simpler form, and I hope that can be achieved before all the public comments are received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Packham, would you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Robinson probably put it in 25 words or less, and I'm going to be a bit longer on the subject, if you don't mind. Leave with my councillors to do so. Mr. Mayor, the 2022-23 budget component of the documents leaves me rather anxious. We are not in a position of strength, and I think all councillors understand that. Having joined council so recently and placed under a performance improvement order, a deficit budget concerns me, and it's something I'm yet to reconcile with, and therefore I echo Councillor Robinson's sentiments on how we need to still have more time to go through it. Like many others, I platformed on the need to instill a robust fiscal management. I'm not yet convinced that this does this. Anyone who balances the household budget knows that we can't spend beyond our means, and equally robbing the rent money to pay the electricity bill is only delaying the inevitable. The impression given here is that if we don't support a deficit budget, we are staring down the barrel of an impending financial disaster or an imploding council organisation. But I'm not absolutely convinced that's a fair assessment. The pitch needn't be as dire as presented. I'm under no illusion that it's all rosy, but I think there's a scope to have a surplus by making some acceptable concessions, and I think that the exhibition period may bring that to light. In fact, the operating budget for the general fund will result in a projected $12.6 million cash surplus. So I ask, why is it necessary to ask the community to spend beyond what they'll earn, potentially placing the council in a precarious financial situation unnecessarily in the short term? And I'll put this caveat on, when a longer term vision is within reach and within our ability to make decisions. Mr. Mayor, I commend every initiative that's set before the community in this budget. They're all essential to invest in our future. I'm absolutely certain everything there is needed. I have a bullish outlook on our region, and I'm a big proponent of taking risk and investing in revenue generating assets that quell or get us above the rising cost of doing business, but I'm not sure they're in this budget. I've never before been so buoyed by our prospects under the current GM and the Director Executive, and the effort expended to put the budget together is tremendous, but I remain cautious that Council has asked for more than it can implement in the next 12 months. I'm concerned that Council hasn't clearly articulated where it will target productivity gains, where it can rationalise or pivot its staff cohort, nor adequately made hard decisions around spending on asset repair or replacements that produce tangible outcomes, and equally I don't prescribe to an all or nothing approach. Mr. Mayor, what we need is a robust look at our business rules. We need to stop cross-subsidising programs. We need to transition out of businesses that belong in the private sector. We need to insist on user-pays regimes rather than ratepayer subsidised ones. And we need to concentrate on back to basics roads, rubbish and reticulation until our way forward is certain. This year is the time to be bold and make the decisions to do business that way. The time to be brash is when the revenue streams are guaranteed and not before. Mr. Mayor, our community needs to be prepared to forego the nice to haves for the needs to haves, because to do otherwise to set sail to fail on both counts. I need more time and I need to hear more from our community, as Councillor Robinson had said. I call on our community now in the 28-day exhibition period to look critically at the budget, the resourcing strategy and the delivery program, to look beyond the glossy pictures and immaculately manicured schematics and come back to us with their aspirations and concerns translated into dollars and cents, and provide their acceptance or otherwise of this budget. Mr Mayor, upon that call to action, I endorse placing the budget in the public domain for consultation as recommended.
Thank you, Councillor Packham. Councillor McMichael.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I thank Councillor Packham for his words. I have a slightly different opinion, I think. I believe in this budget. I think that the councillors have been through the items in this budget. We have listened, I believe, to the community who has not said at any stage that they want a roads and rubbish council. There are a number of governments in this country, council, state and federal. Council is hampered, I believe, by cost shifting from state and federal governments, and we have been encumbered by a significant number of issues and things that we have been given by state governments and by funding cuts from various levels of other government. And I endorse this budget because the councillors have gone through line by line and they have said, this is urgent, this is necessary, this can be put off. And some of those things that were put off were really significant projects that were dear to the hearts of a number of people in this room and of the community. I endorse the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMichael. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd like to thank all the councillors who've spoken so far for their words. I would particularly like to thank the Mayor, the General Manager and all the senior staff and all the staff actually, although I think I'm supposed to call you team members. But anyway, I'd like to just thank you so much for the detail, the amount of time you've given us, and we've been required to give you to go through this, as Councillor McMichael said, line by line. So there's been a lot of thought put into this. But I would, however, like to say I personally have a real sense of anxiety about the ask, the 50% rate rise. I can see where council, the operations of council are coming from in terms of trying to secure long-term sustainability. And I think it's good, it's really good that we have a very clear pitch, if you like, from the organisation of council about the needs of council going forward to be sustainable. But I'm fearful because we are in the middle of a global situation of increased interest rates. We've got a national, state, regional and very, very local situation of housing and accommodation crisis. So this ask is a big ask. Having said that, I am very appreciative of the detail and the ability that or the opportunity that we as councillors have been given to participate in examining items line by line. I'd just like to say, for the benefit of the community who may be watching this live stream, that the New South Wales Government has pretty much made it very clear that they expect a visionary community plan, or what they call community strategic plan. They want the community to sort of have vision, and that's the basis upon which consultation has been done. The basis upon which this budget has been formulated is to respond to that visionary, what this council has chosen to call the Advancing Our Regions Community Plan. In local government speak, that is the Community Strategic Plan. What we've always in the past called the CSP is now the Advancing Our Region Community Plan. It's just names, it doesn't change that. The government is very clear to say that's the community's aspiration. The responsibility of your councillors is to look at the draft delivery program, formulate, basically that's the response. How much can we actually afford to do? and what are the priorities for doing that. So all I want to say to the community right now is the same as Councillor Packham has said. This is absolutely a call to action for you. You need to engage with this. The community must engage. You must read the documents and think carefully about your hip pocket, what you can afford, and if there are services you don't need, if there's adjustments, that if there are aspirations that you could delay, you need to communicate them back to council. So it's a call to action to the community. You need to take responsibility, because it's a very heavy burden that is placed on the governing body to not only be responsible for the financial health and soundness of this organisation, but then to also make sure that everybody out there can survive. So respond, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Witters.
Yeah, I wasn't going to speak, but just listening to the rest of the councillors, I totally agree with some of the sentiments that we need the community to really look at this whole plan. As mentioned by you, Mr. Mayor, I note that there are 7 plans there, plus a few other extras that really need to be looked at, not just the financial sort of stuff. We are making decisions on other things besides that sort of stuff. So take note of what's been said here from the councillors, their concern, your representatives. That's what they're here doing their job and looking at all aspects of what this is to make sure that a good plan goes out to the community. So what we really need to do is make sure that if you have the time and the skills and the abilities to go through these and put in quality submissions, make sure you do that as community representatives, because we can't then go with your ideas if we don't know your ideas when we go to endorse this properly. So take the time, put in the effort, have a bit of a read, look at all of it, not just the financial bits, and give us some good stuff to come back with in 28 days so that we can make some good, solid plans for yourself, for the community. But we've also got to remember that at some point, someone's going to have to make some hard decisions. Otherwise, the next councils are just going to be in the same boat that we are in now. So we either rip the Band-Aid off quickly or we pass it off to the next person.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. Anyone? Councillor Redwood.
Thank you. I wasn't going to speak as a seconder, but given everyone's had a crack, I will too. I think we have to be brave, and I didn't believe that this was an opportunity to put this across, because we were just talking about putting these on exhibition, but we're sitting in amongst now 2 to 3 decades of inaction and poor decision making of the past, and potentially poor political gumption of previous councils to bring us to the point where we need to be. We have listened to the community through the CSP, and there are a number of things mentioned in there that we would not be able to do for the community without the necessary, budgeting that we've undertaken. So I think it's important that people consider what your future wants to look like, whether we want to have a prosperous future in the region or we want to manage a very steady decline into nothingness.
Thank you, Councillor Redwood. Councillor Gadders, it was your motion. Do you wish to speak, or are you?
Very briefly, because I think it's all been said, but I really commend yourself, Margaret and Brad, as well as the sentiment from the others. We do need the public to review this documentation. The best feedback is informed feedback, and you need to take the opportunity to get on board. Potentially, sending feedback without the consideration and time of reading the depth of documentation really isn't going to help our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gadders. And I'd just like to remind those watching, and communication will go out, that there are going to be quite a few information sessions, one in Guyra on this coming Monday and one in Armidale this coming Tuesday. So that'll be an opportunity to, where we will explain further what we're doing and why we're doing it. Councillors, if there's nothing further, let's put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, there being no further business, I declare this meeting closed at 4:20, and thank you very much for your time.